Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to the Ephrata Community Church weekly podcast. Conversation with our pastors and leaders meant to continue encouraging you to know God, know freedom, know purpose, and make a difference.
Hey, good afternoon, Ephrata Community Church. It's great to be with you once again for our weekly podcast episode. And we are joined here with our pastor of pastoral care, who is in the weeds of everything going around here at the church. He is the hands and feet of our pastoral staff and just really touching base with every person here in the church and what's going on. Love this man dearly. This is Dennis Scalise. Dennis, do you want to say hello to those watching?
Hello to those watching. Glad to be here this morning with my very dear friend, Matthew.
You forgot my name. I'm such a dear friend.
I wanted to say Matthew.
It is great to be with you guys here. Each week we like to take a few moments just to unpack the message from the previous weekend, have a little dialogue around it, and really just provide some more encouragement to you wherever you're watching from. And just excited this past weekend we had Lisa Hostler joining us this weekend. To capture the whole thing, it had to do with just being wherever you're at throughout your week, sharing Jesus, just whatever it looks like for you to share the gospel with other people, to really, get before the Lord and say, like, God, would you empower me to share Jesus? And Lisa had a number of stories she shared, which is really kind of more on the newer experience for her, given the life experiences that she's had recently. The Lord really catalyzing in her this evangelism grace to share Jesus, which then provides an anointing on her message just to deposit that same grace onto us here at ECC. So I really enjoyed the message. What did you think about it, Dennis?
Yes, I thought it was a great message, and how she as Lisa Hostler shares Jesus with others, and it's become a lifestyle for her. And I thought that was interesting. Right. Some people think it's something that's extra of your life, and she makes it her lifestyle. She just does it as something very natural. It didn't start out that way, she'll tell you, but it became very natural for her.
Yeah, and it's invitational in nature, just to realize, like, wow, that can become natural for me as well.
Absolutely.
Just going throughout my day with this constant perspective of, like, I'm encountering people all the time throughout my day. I have no idea what their story is, where they're at with the Lord, and I have an opportunity to be a light to that person. Yes. And it's a beautiful message, and it's something we can all draw from. And so one of the questions I had for you, Dennis, the way Lisa shared her stories was, she would have said, like, not everybody that she shares Jesus with would have given their lives to the Lord right there in that spot, although some have. She's just part of the storyline, right? And God's going to take care of the rest. It's on Him to do. But the reality is, each person who is saved is because someone else really represented Jesus to that person, relayed the reality of the gospel. And so I'm curious, like, do you, in your story, Dennis, and how you ended up giving your life to the Lord, I'm curious to hear, like, what are one or two or several pivotal figures that would have relayed that message? And the reason I'm asking is because this should inform us of the reality that, like, it's actually pretty simple, I imagine, to simply share the good news of Jesus and represent Jesus well, and realize that these moments that might seem simple or small actually carry a little bit more weight than we might assume. So go ahead.
One of the first encounters I had with someone that knew Jesus personally, I was in college and I was getting a degree in psychology, and I was asked to be on a panel for religious life in college, representing the religion that I was part of. And the religion I was part of had no paradigm for salvation. Just didn't. It's just the way it was a religion. And I remember when I was on this panel, this woman looked at me and says, I have a question for you, pointing at me. There was like 4 or 5 of us, different kind of religions, Islam, all of it was there. And she pointed at me and says, have you found Jesus? Now, being a typical...
This is in front of a whole group.
Oh, yes. And being a typical, arrogant college student, I said, well, I didn't know he was lost. I didn't realize I was lost. But she, at that moment, I know this, she at that moment began to pray for me. I knew it. So that was the first contact with the person that had this idea that you need to find Jesus. So the second contact I had was in a very dark place. I lived in the city. I just become part of a community theater. And the lifestyles there are very dark. It was not a place where you'd think a believer should be. But God thought there should be one there. And there was this one woman who was part of the cast that would just talk so freely about Jesus. And I remember she would engage me in conversation, and I would tell her about being in my religion, but she would continue to say, well, I just know Jesus. And it fascinated me, and it scared me at the same time. She wanted to pray for me, and I know on one or two occasions she asked if I would pray with her, and I couldn't, I wouldn't. I knew it was a big step, I just wasn't sure what it meant. So it was only I would say several months later, where I hurt my back, and I ended up being in my parents' home again. I had my own apartment because my apartment had 2 flights of steps, and I couldn't take them at the time. But I went back to my parents' house, and I was in my old room, and every Catholic household has a picture of Jesus in every room, or a crucifix or something. In that case, it was a picture of Jesus, and it was a very stunning picture of Jesus with his heart exposed, with a crown of thorns around, a sword through it, a crown on it, deep set eyes, beautiful picture. And all I remember is taking that picture off the wall and saying, and in tears, just saying, all I want to do is follow you. That's the day I was saved. Wow. Except I didn't know I was saved because I didn't have a paradigm for it. It was only later that same lady who shared with me in the theater explained that salvation.
Well, so when that moment happened, you were in a really broken position.
Yes, I was.
The memory of that lady sharing Jesus with you, was that going through your mind, or was it?
I'm sure it was. I like at the time, I think it set the stage for me to understand that there is someone that has a relationship with Jesus.
Sure.
And I didn't have that. So yes, it did set that stage.
So
absolutely.
In hindsight, you look back and you realize, like, that was such a pivotal part of my journey, what she was sowing into me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that woman that began to pray brought me to the woman that shared with me and planted the seeds, and she also watered, and then God brought the harvest.
So how does that inform you today, in the way you live out your Christian faith and the way you relate to other people? Obviously you're a pastor here, so it goes with the territory that you're, that sharing about, Jesus with those who don't know him, as well as encouraging people to take a greater step in their walk with the Lord. But how does that inform you when you're just living your life? You're at the gym, you're taking walks around the neighborhood, you're weeding your garden. Like, what does a day in the life of Dennis Scalise look like, and how do you share Jesus?
It's funny when you say at the gym, because that's been several times
that right?
I've been able to share Jesus very specifically. It's not during the workout. It's usually afterwards in the locker room. We have a sauna there. Several times I just learned to start a conversation.
In the sauna?
In the sauna. And I can only handle so much, but I end up, I could do about 10 minutes in this. I end up 20 minutes sometimes.
Is that right?
But I'm talking and telling them about Jesus. Well, honestly, it works.
I got to stop you there, because I love the sauna. We've talked about this a number of times. I just want you to know, I'm a pastor, and I would not engage that conversation in the sauna. I'm not here for that. But that's beautiful. I love that. That's amazing. And to each his own, right?
And you ask how I do it.
Exactly. But that almost proves the point, I guess, that goes through my mind. Is it's not there's not one formula to sharing Jesus.
Exactly.
Lisa's here sharing what it looks like for her, which is empowering because it expands the horizon of how people can engage evangelism, the topic, but it's not this is what has to be, this is how you have to do it. In fact, there's just a variety of ways, and although the story takes on very practical details of what it looks like, the elements can be pulled from that and placed in any type of scenario, which is just as Lisa would have shared, just treat them like you already know them, was her one point. Just engage with the person you're with, as if you've already known them, and just being kind and gracious, and things that we shouldn't have to tell people to do, but yet I need reminded, like in the middle of my day, to be like, okay, Matt, calm down. You can actually be kind and smile. Smiling is helpful, and so I love that you're sharing the gospel in the sauna. And
it's not the only place I share.
Oh, that's not it? That's not the only
there's
spot?
plenty of places, but you said the gym, and that just, because that's happened. I can't tell you how often how that's happened.
So sharing the gospel for you, is it something that and I'm thinking about the variety of people that make up Ephrata Community Church that hear a message on evangelism. In your experience, has it always been something that if somebody would get up and say, hey, you have to share Jesus with people, you always met that message with a yes, okay, I'll do it? Or did you ever deal with like fear of man, or like did you ever feel like guilty for what you weren't doing, shame, different things that people feel and experience?
All of the above.
Go ahead.
But learning to, again, we can live by our feelings if we want to, but I choose to live by a decision. And what I used to do is I used to walk, when I was first saved, not knowing, I didn't even know Jesus that well, but I would walk the streets of Reading, and I would begin just randomly, sometimes just seeing someone. I saw a kid crying sitting by a lamppost there. I think it was a street light, and just going up and talk to him and find out, why are you crying? And try to offer what I could offer. And I think that particular kid I took to a friend of mine that lived in town, and I think we did the whole gamut with this kid. Got him help, got him, what we could do. It's just, you look, I don't even know if I looked for opportunities or just got myself into a place where opportunities would come to me. And sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, both and. Yeah, I want to be like Dennis when I grow up. That's awesome. Yeah, I have a very different journey, which, just to keep it brief, like I had really traumatic experiences growing up and in high school and things like that, which caused me to really just, I don't want to be in the public view. It's much more comfortable for me to just like hide out, be in the background, and not be in the spotlight, because anytime anytime attention was drawn to me, it always was a painful experience. And because of that, I also had this perspective kind of that like you don't talk about religion or politics was kind of a statement that I would have heard, and really kind of just felt like, wow, okay, if you can't talk about these elements, that means they're hostile in nature. And two things going on. If I'm gonna tell people about Jesus, like how can I share the good news of Jesus Christ while introducing hostility at the same time? That I always had such a difficult time mentally with that. As well as if it is going to introduce hostility, and because of my history, my painful experiences, it's like that's the last thing that I'm ready to do. And so there was actually a long journey of inner healing and things that I needed to walk through before I actually could hear not just a message on evangelism, because if you're in a Christian community, that message is there, for better or for worse, whether it's a religious spirit driving you better do it or else, or it's actually Jesus saying, come and be with me where I am, and I will make of you a fisher of men. I will empower you to represent me well, which I think is a true message on evangelism. To even get to that point was such a long journey of actually getting healing, and I wonder what's empowered me is to realize one of the let me say it this way, a key element that has empowered me with peace as well as confidence to share Jesus was what Lisa Hostler was saying. Be yourself and be like you're with your friends. Just be who you are wherever you are. Like that is such an empowering, simple truth that I need to remind myself, because I realize that like that you're going to find the best representation of Jesus that I can put off that I can do that is who I truly am in without any type of form to take on or pressure to have to represent something. Is this making sense?
Maybe it's called your light shining. That's all it is. It is
being an aroma.
Absolutely.
Hopefully a pleasing one.
And the Word of God says simply that God blesses the righteous and surrounds them with His favor. And I think a lot of times people are attracted to the favor of God in your life, and they'll respond to you. I sometimes I start by a simple question, like you said with the sauna. Do you live around here? Yeah. And then I start, and the next thing, what do you do? Oh. And then they'll ask me what I do. Now I'm a pastor. Oh. But sometimes that's the open door. Yeah. Whatever I am, that's what I am. And then it opens the door to share more.
That's awesome, Dennis. You're amazing. And every time, I can't unsee what I've seen in saunas in the past, and therefore the idea of engaging someone in conversation by itself, whatever we're talking about, is just like, I'm just going to keep my eyes down on the ground, close them. I've seen things.
Eye to eye. That's how I handle it. Just eye to eye. It works.
You are awesome, Dennis. All right, that is going to bring us to a conclusion here for this week's episode. We're excited about this coming weekend. We have Mike Wanger who's going to be bringing the word this weekend. I look forward to that. We're going to laugh. We're going to be challenged. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yep. So look forward to being with you again here next week, as well as this weekend at our services. Thanks for tuning in today. God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks again for joining us today. We hope that you've been encouraged by listening, and that you'll join us again next week. You can listen to previous episodes, find additional resources, and of course, learn more about us by visiting EphrataCommunityChurch.com.